Hello everyone, this is Mumblebee, and today join me for making kimchi because it's Gimjang, or the festival of making kimchi, which is on November 22nd, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Also, feast your eyes on the rare view of the kitchen that I usually work in. This is a treat, and you will also probably have a cameo of my sister, but she will be just hands. So for all of those hands people out there, this is for you. Right, so introducing the order of the things, I will need to cure the cabbages, or basically salt the cabbages, because in this country you cannot get pre-salted cabbages for kimchi making, so we make it in the house. Then we will be making the sauce and the vegetables, and after that we will combine everything together into one delicious kimchi, crunchy, amazing, and very flavorful and full of all the things good for your microbiome. Let me introduce you to all our produce. Ta-da! That's a lot of stuff. We're gonna use all of it. So first thing, we need to clean the cabbages and get them ready for cutting and salting. For this step, we're using sea salt. It's coarse sea salt. I'm gonna show you this. If you don't have sea salt, Himalayan or regular salt is fine. In terms of cabbage, we have napa cabbages or Chinese cabbages, whichever one you want to call it. And this is the traditional kimchi that you think about, but kimchi itself refers to the process of pickling or curing any type of vegetables. You can have kimchi made out of all sorts of different things. When preparing the cabbage for salting, we need to remove any damaged or rotten leaves and wash thoroughly. Since I'm making traditional napa kimchi, I'm splitting them in halves or quarters, however the process is more time consuming. If you want to save on time, you can cut the cabbages into smaller pieces. It more or less comes down to preference, and if you're making pechu gochuri or fresh kimchi, it's easier to pre-cut them down to bite-sized pieces. I like the whole halves or quarters better because it's easier to portion for cooking, and I also think it adds to the whole process of kimchi making. Once the cabbages are washed, we can prepare the brine. Put a bit of salt into a large bowl, then fill with cold water and stir until most of the crystals have dissolved. When the brine is ready, take each cabbage half, dunk in water and salt in between the leaves, paying special attention to the hard part which needs the most salt for curing. In total, this was about 1 kilogram of salt used for about 14 to 16 kilograms of cabbage. I measure by eye at this point and probably use a bit more salt than necessary, but this is because of personal preference and the trials and errors I've made while learning how to make it. I'd rather wash out extra salt than compromise on whether or not the cabbages are properly salted in the end. I've included some recipes in the description that give more precise measurements if you'd like to make a less salty version. After all the cabbage is salted, put a weight on top and set it aside. If necessary, you can add more water, but don't fill it up too much as the cabbages will release water in the process and it might overspill. That's a lot of cabbage. It's a cabbage man. Cabbage snowman. My cabbages. Moving on, we have the vegetables. Technically, they are not indispensable, so if you don't want to add them, it's okay, but usually kimchi has some sort of radish or leafy greens added for a more well-rounded flavor profile. What you see here are basically substitutes for what would go into kimchi with the exception of carrots. I've swapped Korean radish for daikon and chives for spring onions. I've seen a few recipes that use mustard leaves and other greens, but I've not found any to purchase yet. Boats to think in about future projects. We start with cutting the daikon and carrots into matchsticks or julienning. Usually you would use a mandolin for this, which you can for more uniform pieces. However, I've almost taken off a finger when I was trying to use a mandolin and made the executive decisions to cut vegetables by hand for safety reasons. Once the vegetables are cut, we can salt them so they soften. The spring onions only require cutting into about the same sized pieces as the other vegetables. I also decided to cut some of the daikon into chunks and make kaktuki. Next up, making the sauce or paste. The paste essentially has two main components: various blended fruits and spices, and rice flour porridge. The fruit and spices blend includes ginger, pears. I use conference pears because according to Google they are the closest equivalent to Korean pears. Apples. Usually I go for Granny Smith apples because they give a nice acidity, but any apple you have will do. Garlic and onion. One essential addition to these is fish sauce. Traditionally, jotkal is used. Jotkal or jot refers to seafood that has been preserved by salting. It can be eaten as a side dish by itself or used as a condiment. But the main reason for using jot in kimchi making is to add umami and salt. Remember how I'm using more salt than recipes online? This is one of the reasons why. Usually I opt for a fish sauce because using shrimp paste and other cured seafood is a bit much for me. If you don't like or don't want to use fish sauce, vegetable stock or water works just as well. All ingredients need to be peeled and diced into smaller chunks, then blitzed together to make a paste. Rice flour porridge is simple to make, however you need the right kind of flour. Regular rice flour you'll find in the store won't work because it's not glutenous enough. I purchased mine online from specialty stores, but you can make it at home from sushi rice if you want to. The rice porridge is made by heating up water and slowly incorporating the flour until the consistency of glue. To make it easier, you can first dissolve the rice in cold water, the same as you would with starch, and add the slurry into boiling water. Another tip is something that I've learned from a content creator here on YouTube, is to use stock instead of plain water. You can make the stock yourself, as I did this time, using carrots, daikon, anchovies, kombu, onion and garlic, or use store-bought. If you're using store-bought stock, make sure to check the salt content. The rice porridge doesn't take long to heat up and thickens fast, so don't snooze while stirring. Once the sauce is prepped, we can wash the vegetables from excess salt. Then we combine the vegetables, rice porridge, and fruit and spices paste together. An essential ingredient, and you will not get kimchi without it, is gochugaru. Gochugaru refers to Korean chili pepper powder. You can get two kinds, coarse and fine grind. Coarse is better for kimchiing and fine is for cooking, but this time I only had fine powder, so in it goes. Again, I'm measuring by vibes, but more details are in the description, and in the video you can see me using a measuring spoon. It's for 20 milliliters per scoop, and milliliters and grams are the same thing. You can fight me on it when it's coming to cooking. Another indispensable ingredient is rubber gloves, unless you want to have orange hands, which I don't recommend. Also, the spiciness on your hands if you go sans gloves lasts a lot longer than you might think, even when you have washed your hands. And if you touch your face afterwards, especially if you rub your eyes, you can literally give yourself spicy eyes. So get some gloves. And we mix everything together. When done, you can cover the kimchi paste and leave it be. Typically, I use it right away, but because the cabbages are still curing, it'll have to wait. I left it out, but if you're planning to use it later than 2 days, better to refrigerate. Next morning, we can see how much water has released from the cabbages. Sometimes it can overspill, so pour the excess off and leave it longer. Also, don't forget to turn the cabbages a few times for an even salt. Welcome to 2 days later. It's time to wash the cabbages. The reason we wash the cabbage is to rid of the excess salt. You should wash it about 3 to 4 times, swapping water with each wash. Since it's a lot of cabbage, it took a while. Literally, I've got like an hour's worth of cabbage washing footage. If you're making a smaller batch, it won't take as long and sometimes needs only 2 to 3 washes depending on how much salt was used. Once all the cabbage is squeaky clean, it's time to slather it with kimchi paste. Get on your trusty handy dandy rubber gloves and let's start. The method is simple. You take 1/2 of kimchi and rub the paste in between each leaf until the whole is covered. Then repeat until you've mixed all the cabbage and paste together. I leave the finished pieces in the mixing pot, but you can put them into storage containers straight away. My favorite is reusing gochujang boxes, like here, using it to store the kaktuki we made before. Gochujang is Korean chili pepper sauce. Technically, you can use it for a quick fix when making kimchi because it contains rice flour paste and gochugaru, but the flavor profile will be different. The rice porridge in gochujang is also fermented, so it has a mild alcohol content. Talking about other containers for storage, I use any available jars or Tupperware. Traditionally, kimchi was stored in earthenware jars called Onggi. You might have seen them in K-dramas or smaller versions used by chefs when cooking. Nowadays, there are even specialty fridges with storage compartments specifically for kimchi, or entire fridges solely for kimchi storage. But before electricity, the onggi would be stored outside or underground. I'll link a really fascinating documentary about onggi making that I found on YouTube. Also, most of my knowledge comes from a documentary called Kimchi Nara, or A Nation of Kimchi. This documentary is available on Netflix and YouTube, and honestly is one of the most well-made introductory videos into kimchi making. The part that left the biggest impression on me was the making of kimchi from wildflowers. When I first watched the documentary, my mind still related kimchi only with napa cabbage kimchi, so seeing flowers used as a substitute for cabbage was equal parts flabbergasting and fascinating. Other sources that I've explored are the channels by Dubidupap, Modern Pepper, and Mangchi. I've tried some of the many recipes available on their channels, and the method of kimchi making I'm currently following is an amalgamation of things I've tried and liked from all these creators, as well as tips and tricks gathered from documentaries. Once all your cabbages have been sauced up, we leave the container or containers out for a day uncovered or partially covered. This is to start the fermentation process. Later on, we'll store them in the fridge or anywhere cold. If it's cold enough, you can even keep the kimchi outside. And there you have it, kimchi made during Gimjang. Technically, it should last a year, but with the way I've been conditioning the people around me to consume kimchi, it will be more like a few months. I hope you enjoyed today's video and found it equally informative and entertaining. Like and subscribe if you like this type of content, share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be eagerly anticipating them, and I'll see you next time for more cooking adventures. Bye bye!